I want you to go back when you watch that play, watch Latu just absolutely pancake that defensive end, man. And you can see it, man. I mean, it's just, that's when we just started, kind of exerting our will. Big shout out to Pat Chun putting the USC band up in the 300 level far corner. Absolutely.
All right, dog fans, before we hop into the show, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out, and we appreciate the support. Thanks to our sponsor, Simply Seattle, we'll be picking out one lucky new subscriber to win free Washington Huskies t-shirt and hat. To enter, just subscribe, drop a comment below letting us know that you've done it. You can be out there flexing that new Husky drip, that new Husky swag in no time. Plus, don't forget to check out Simply Seattle's QR code at the bottom of the screen, which will take you directly to their website for all your Washington Husky apparel needs. Good luck. Go Dogs. Thank you for everything.
Welcome to the Dubbed Up Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Flaunt. We're back in the win column after a big win versus USC. I got my guys Izzo and Noah with me. Fellas, this podcast is so much fun when we're coming off a win. How are we feeling, guys? Like I said, I'm feeling great. You got my jacket on. I'm swagged out. I feel real good. Noah, what do you think about this game against USC?
19 home wins in a row. Insane. I think that's in like the modern era of Husky football, I think that's the longest streak. We'll go for 20 against UCLA. You got to love the energy from the crowd, on Montlake, man. That was, a lot louder than I thought it would be, especially with the weather, especially with kind of the time of the game. 4:30 game against USC. I just kind of thought, coming off a couple of those losses, Montlake wouldn't be as popping. But, dude, it was loud, a lot louder than I thought, like I said.
Sellout.
Yep, it was a sellout. And the other thing is, it kind of had a little bit of like the ambiance of like a Seahawk type stadium. You realize that we got that right tackle, Mason Murphy, to jump offside 4 times.
And it should have been like 14 times. But
I know. So that's what I think Capel or someone put that in one of their articles was, I guess there's a ton of complaints on Twitter and everything that he was jumping all game early.
Yes, he was.
Yeah. And it's hard to see that, from the stadium. But did you guys think that game was oddly familiar kind of to like the Michigan game earlier in the year?
Good call.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a really good call, dude. That's exactly how it felt.
Yeah, I mean, early lead, we kind of get up, and then it gets a little shaky in the third quarter. But, man, our Stevie B, man, that defense, man, they just know how to shut the freaking doors down, man. When the storm's coming, they shut the hatches down, buckle up. And, dude, they show up when it's needed. And the storm came in more ways than one. And I'll tell you what, I don't think Miller Moss and them USC boys like that rain up here in the Pacific Northwest. You can see that rain coming. They started getting chilly.
Big facts.
Man, it was a fun game to see, man.
Yeah, I agree. Izzo, what you think?
Same thing, man. USC did not play up, and part of it did have to do with the weather. And to Noah's point, 72,000 fans for a 500 football team, man.
Like, was homecoming though.
Was homecoming, but that won't necessarily get you to 72,000, right? Like
that's big facts.
I'm super, I don't know, I'm just proud of Husky Nation and proud to be a dog for that reason. Something we've forgotten about over this year to this point has been the penalties. And it's worth calling out that despite there being 7 penalties and some of them having influence, they're no longer taking over games. And maybe that happened a few games ago and we just didn't acknowledge it. But that's encouraging in a game in the rain, in a game that pivotal to the season. This is a must-win game for us. Looking at the remainder of the schedule, I don't think it's a shock to anybody to look at Penn State and Oregon as, in the last 3 games of the season and say that USC, we had to win this game. And it wasn't a foregone conclusion that we were going to. So, we showed up. USC at the beginning of this game did not. They kind of got their, footing underneath them, but it just wasn't enough. And Stevie B flexed his muscle with the scheme. There were some miscues. The game was not perfect by any means. There's definitely some play calling stuff that, of course, we can couch quarterback it. But all in all, you got to feel good about it, man.
Well, one thing really quick I wanted to say this is, do you think, you talk about penalties, Izzo, and you kind of talk about the play calling. What is your thoughts with head coaches calling plays? I want to go somewhere with that, but why I'm asking it that way, and then I'll let you answer, is because if the head coach is going to call plays, there's got to be somebody on the field, on that staff, that is in charge of
a veto.
Well, no. Sorry. No, that's funny. But no, like game management, clock management, making sure the correct personnel is on and off the field. Hey coach, here's a couple options. It's 3rd and 6 here. If we don't get it, should we punt? Should we go a play where, hey, we're gonna go for it? I just don't know if I'm seeing that from the sidelines right now. And so where I'm going with that is a lot of times when you have the offensive coordinator call the plays, the coach is in charge of a lot of those things, clock management, whatever that may be. That's one thing I think I'm struggling with this team is I see us making too many blunders and mistakes doing the little things like that. Like if you remember when we had the ball late in the game, we ended up getting that substitution penalty.
Oh yeah.
And that's where I'm wondering, and I'll let you answer, but it's like that's where I'm struggling to see is like, hey, Jed, if you're going to call plays, someone else on your staff needs to be in charge of those little things.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I think you're 100% correct. I think Brennan Carroll's a little too busy because he's controlling also the offensive line. And so somebody to be in charge of that would be optimal, I would think, if I was Jed Fish. But
Not
but
yeah.
I was gonna say, what Izzo said though about the penalties not killing us, that one definitely had the potential to be worse than it was.
Yeah.
But we had a redshirt freshman starting at left tackle for the first time. And we still didn't have to deal with the problems that we dealt with earlier in the season because we seem to be a lot more on point.
Yeah.
And I think the growth is definitely there. But what Noah's saying, man, that might be something for the future. Yo, Jed, I hope you're listening. This might help you out because the truth of the matter is that might help eliminate some of those smaller penalties or time management issues, things that are literally the small details that can win or lose you a game.
The only thing that I could think of to legitimize that would be that you know that you're going to be doing it that way for a very long time, and it's a forcing function of we're not going to change this because we have to adapt as a staff and get better as a staff at communicating those things. But it is, I tweeted this out during the game. It's game 9 now. And that type of thing you would think would get cleaned up a little bit, but not to go too far off the rails with that, because we could probably talk about it for a while. But yeah.
It feels good though. We're back in the win column,
Hey,
so I'm taking it, no matter how it plays. Now let's move into some of the standout players, specifically on the offensive side of the ball, because man, it was a real up and down game. The first couple quarters we seemed to be we started off fast for the first time, and it felt good. And then that third quarter hit, and all of a sudden we're losing. And then the fourth quarter comes in, and we're able to kind of get back on the scoreboard. I'm going to start with you on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Who are some standout offensive players that you saw?
Well, I'm going to try to go rogue a little bit here because there's the names that we call out every single week, right? Like your Jonah Colemans and whatnot. I just loved seeing the end around being used in the red zone, and specifically to Keith Reynolds. It was like
Keith.
Yeah,
he's good. I like him.
Keith. we needed that, man. He broke that out. Then the 50-yard return, that was fantastic. So, not somebody is super obvious, but if you're not a casual fan and you're diehard and you're probably listening to us, then you know how meaningful that is. And then the other guy, I would say, really shored things up on one side and came out as you can watch it yourself. You don't need a PFF grade, but Drew Party had a really good game, short up that right side. And then Grady Gross, dude, all he needed was the rain. All he needed was the rain to
okay.
to right the ship, dude.
Rain, purple rain.
Yeah, man. So I heard Jed in the back of my mind, just like, hey, these games turn out a lot different if we hit those field goals. And all of us just rolling our eyes like, what about the play calling? Come on, take some accountability or whatever. But it really was absolutely, you could point at it. He's the reason why we came out victorious in this game, whether it be momentum during the second quarter where we go up 20-17, or, it's kicking a 45-yarder with, wind blowing all over the place and rain, however you want to put it, man. He was a big factor in this.
Okay. Izzo, what about you?
My name's Noah, sir.
Oh, sorry. Noah.
He's just excited I'm back.
Yeah, I am. I'm glad you're back, bro. Noah, what about you?
23 carries. I'm good. Just what the doctor ordered, baby. Jonah Coleman, man, 104 yards, 2 tutties. But man, tell me that those inside and outside zones we just continue to run all night to him were just absolute, just hitting, man. If you look at him, it's I guess what makes it so he's one of those backs that you remember that Marshawn Lynch we talked about on the pod before when he's like, just hit him in the face. But that's him, man. I mean, he's a bowling ball. He falls forward every time. And when you watch him play, man, if you look on that second touchdown run, we lined up in 11 personnel, Latu with a traditional tight end. We bring in Jeremiah Hunter. We put him in motion. We got Damon Williams with the quarterback and Jonah Coleman's, kind of in the pistol offset. And we run an outside zone. And dude, Jonah presses up inside and then bang, bang, bounces it outside when he got off to the races for that long touchdown. But I want you to go back when you watch that play, watch Latu just absolutely pancake that defensive end, man. And you can see it, man. I mean, it's just, that's when we just started, kind of exerting our will on them. And what, do you guys remember what we talked about looking at this, this team was, just keep running at him, And over the game, you saw it. And in the third quarter, like I said, it got a little shaky. But in the fourth quarter, if we don't have that little substitution there, bro, we just kept chunk playing them 6 yards, 9 yards. We never would have gave the ball back after that 5-6 minutes to go, So it's exactly what the doctor ordered, like I said, man. And Jonah Coleman
he gets his, not to interrupt you, I just want to
go
call one thing out. And I'm trying to remember if they called it out during the podcast or during the broadcast, and that's why it came to mind as I was rewatching the game. But Jonah's ability to keep his shoulders square with the goal line as he's moving side to side, like they broke through our line, and he bounced out that touchdown run, that like 12, 13 yarder one you were talking about. And he moves laterally with his shoulders square to the goal line.
Yeah, balance,
as fast as he is running straight ahead in a dead sprint. Like his short legs, like so strong, just chopping. It does remind you of Marshawn, man. That's
dude, it is big
like
time.
chopping a legs thing. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and that vision reminds me of Miles. Like we haven't had a guy who's able to see the hole when the hole is not there like this in such a long time. And man, it was the big difference because those plays, a lot of those were where the hole wasn't open. And he ended up having to break it out. And that jump cut is dangerous, bro. That jump cut is dangerous.
Yeah.
Dude, what about here's another one for you guys. No touchdowns. So you don't see it on all the highlight films or nothing. But how about the game that Denzel Boston had again?
Yep.
Just 9 catches, 99 yards. But dude, how nasty was he just on those quick hitters, on those slants?
Yeah. Dude, doesn't it feel like the slant is like, it's got to be 100% completion percentage on it?
We've never dropped one.
I swear to God, like I can't remember a single time the slant got dropped from Denzel or that he didn't catch the pass attempt.
Yep. Okay, so I think that's a solid one for me. It's the young kid. It's Tafai. Now I know I don't think he graded out extremely high, but what I did notice was that I didn't notice him. You know what I'm saying? I didn't notice him giving up a play. It didn't feel like it felt with some of the other tackles that we've had play this year, where we're like, man, we got to get this guy out. And I tweeted this. I want to see him start every snap possible for the rest of the season, if possible, because I think he's our new left tackle.
I like it.
Ooh,
yeah, we've been needing it. All right.
I mean, really quick on that, Mike, 'cause I think that's a great point. I mean, did you guys realize in this game, this was the first game we started the offensive line we started. So Enoch Vamahi, he actually came off the bench in this game, and we started Landon Hatchett at that right guard position.
Yeah.
And I would not be surprised when we travel to Penn State, if you see that Tafai, Memilar, TT Ali, Hatchett, and Azzopardi. I bet you that's our starting line again. Exactly right there. So
we called that out last week on the podcast too. That was exactly what we said we were hoping to see.
The consensus is this is the offensive line we want to see moving forward.
Correct. For the rest of this season.
It's the most successful, man. I mean, we talked about this multiple times. When these guys were in, now it wasn't Tafai, it was I think it was McCree. But when these other 4 guys were in, I'm sorry, the reality is this is when we have been most successful.
And McCree is back. Apparently, he's gonna have to wear a club the rest of the year for whatever he did to his hand, but he is back and available according to Jetfish, his press conference this week. So
Mike,
that is
that's
a
a good
thing.
point. But if that's the case, we're going to see a lot of Tafai. And I think everyone, our listeners understand why. But dude, an offensive, when you play defensive line, you can kind of get away with a club because you don't need to grab as much. But when you're, and people might say, well, that's a hold. Well, no, dude, everything with offensive lineman is inside the pads, right? So if he can't grab a defensive lineman, get him up in his pads, it's really hard to play. So if he's going to be in a club all year, dude, you're going to see a heavy dose of Tafai for the rest of the year for sure.
Well, I'm also just hoping that it gives them a chance to develop Fa'a Solo a little bit more on the bench. I feel like you keep putting him in there and he keeps getting beat, you're gonna kill this kid's
Those aren't
confidence.
good reps. Yeah, I totally agree.
You
And
know,
they haven't been good reps.
well, and I think that his size is gonna allow him to play a lot of different places on the offensive line. If left tackle isn't where he belongs, move him somewhere else. Do like what we did with Bulow and move him around, see where he gets comfortable, because I guarantee you somebody that big and that athletic is going to be able to get in somewhere. It just might not be this season.
Yeah.
All right, we ready to look to the other side of the ball?
Yes, sir.
Let's do it.
I got a question for you guys. Have you ever wanted to walk into Husky Stadium where there's 70,000 people and be the best looking person in the stadium? If you have, make sure you go to Simply Seattle, hit that QR code. Our good friends at Simply Seattle hooked us up and we look great. You see that QR code? Make sure you snap that, go check it out, get all the Husky gear you want, plus Mariners, Sonics, Storm, all that stuff, everything at Simply Seattle.
While you're at it, be sure to check out the Dubbed Up Discord community with over 2,700 members. It's the largest organized chat room for all things Washington Husky athletics. You want insider access? Our VIP membership unlocks exclusive chat rooms and rumors you won't find anywhere else. Hit the QR code on the screen and join the conversation today. Go Dogs. Thank you for everything.
Let's look at the Husky defense. Who are some standout players? Because, there's a bunch of them. It was a great defensive game for the Dogs. Who are some standout players? Noah, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Well, first off, I'm just going to shout out to the Husky defense for getting Miller Moss put to the bench with 3 interceptions. sorry, Miller Moss. Another game where you come in and the results aren't up to par. Now they're going with Jade Maeva. So
I think Zachariah is leaving too. I think I saw that earlier too.
Yeah, I know
that's confirmed. You can never tell with.
Yeah, I know there's rumors on that for sure, but dude, the LA, man, the door is opening. I think a lot quicker than what they're keeping around. So I think they see that too with their coach, but. I'm going to go with, I'll come back to, I think the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week, unless Izzo wants to grab Carson Bruener, but I want to go with Alenius Davis. And I want to go with Alenius Davis because it's a huge position of need. I think everyone's starting to really realize how good Javon Parker really was for us when he was healthy. Nothing against Bandis, nothing against Valdez, Sagapolu, nothing against those guys, but it's like they were already kind of somewhat in the rotation as we were moving. Dude, Alenius Davis came in, I think he got 19 or 20 snaps, graded out right around 72. But man, it's just every rep he's in is solid. He's just developing, and you can see that in him. And I think, I did on the Discord, I kind of looked into 2025 and looked at what does the defensive line look like? And man, I'll tell you what, Alenius Davis is going to be a cog on that inside, and he's going to be a big portion. And so getting these young, 19, 20, 22 reps a game that he's getting is going to bode well for the future. So Alenius Davis, man, he gets my initial, football.
I think you're totally right. What I was going to say is that, the other guys that you mentioned, Bandis, Sagapolu, who's the other one?
Valdez,
a little bit more than the other two, but you notice that they're not getting a lot of pressure in the pass rush. With Davis, you're starting to see him push the line. Now, against the run, those guys have all been pretty solid, but it's in that pass rushing, especially on like the first and second downs when they're on the field. You want to see some pressure come, because there was a bunch of times against USC where I was watching them. I was like, man, there is no pressure at all right now. He's sitting, Miller Moss is standing back there for 7, 8, 9 seconds, and you're like, can somebody do something?
Yeah.
It almost looked like it was by design. I noticed the exact same thing. There was a couple times where even on the interception, the first interception from Bruener, they were standing in position and jumping. They weren't even trying to get pressure. But no, it's a good point. The future of the interior defensive line is looking good, for lack of a better way of putting it.
Agreed. No, you have any other players that stood out to you?
I mean,
He does.
yeah,
He does.
I can go Carson Bruener. I mean, I'll just say, man, Carson Bruener, dude, he's a Husky legend, man. I mean, that dude, dude, his shoulder is just hanging there, and he just continually, man, gets back up, gets
Is
back
he an
up.
NFL guy?
I think he's an
That's
NFL
the question.
roster. Yeah.
Yeah.
Izzo and I talked about this morning. I think he's an NFL roster guy for sure. Does he get drafted? That's going to be tough because I
It's
think
going to depend on that physical.
exactly. So,
That's a good
but I
point.
think that
That's a very good
I
point.
think he finds himself on the NFL roster for sure and makes impacts. And I mean, dude, would you guys say this is the best game he's probably ever played? Is it?
The last 3 years, he seems to always show up big in big moments. Like he's big play when it comes to playing defense. Now, there is definitely times where you see in the past where we've seen him get washed up in the line and not make a play. But when we need one, he seems to be the guy that's always there.
Yeah, and
he's been making those plays since he's a freshman too.
it's impossible to tell with those ones that he got washed up in the line too. Like it's hard to tell from a spectator's standpoint what was designed and what run fit he had and whatnot. But yeah, I think I agree. This was his best game. If you go and watch, I mean, I could watch the series where we stuffed them at the goal line in the fourth quarter 100 times over. One of those ended with Bruner laying. I don't know if it was the shoulder, but you could see it coming from 3 yards out. Like they're making contact. It's going to be full force. Carson Bruener on Woody Marks, and he lays his shoulder into him and gets the stop.
Yep.
I want to call out, like, I get, this is kind of, it's not a player, but it's a set of plays. That set of plays is like definitive Husky football right there.
4-down stand, baby.
Yeah. And I want to shout out Logan Sagapolu. He bricked one. He had either one or two offensive linemen in front of him. Woody Marks ran right at him, and he stonewalled him on first down. They ran another play on second. I can't remember, but the third down play was where Bruner stuck his shoulder into him and stopped him on the goal line. And then they went for it on fourth, and Kamori House said no. If you notice on that third down play, Alfonso sealed the edge because it was a crack toss and it was going to go to the outside, and it forced him on the inside, and he ran straight into Bruner. That was just the epitome of Husky football.
Dude, when I watch those stands, because dude, we've had quite a few this year actually. I really think it is very impressive how quickly that our defensive unit has like taken to do your job mentality that the Belichick's really bring into a system.
Feel like they're expecting to stop them now as opposed to feeling like they're going to score. And that's a good thing, because that's how we felt about the offense last year. We thought, oh, it's third down. We know we're going to get it. Mike's got it. With the defense and Stevie B, now you're like, hey, man, we just need you to pull this rabbit out of your hat. You've been doing it for the last 10 weeks or whatever. Let's see you do it again. And they did it. And that Kamori House play was huge. Izzo, who stands out for you?
Hold on. But okay, unless Izzo's going to say Kamori House, I got to say this about him. Dude, we talked about this. Okay, yeah, okay, good. I just want to say this piece. We talked about this with Cam Fab, and you've heard me say this. We talked about this with Michaela Steen. We talked about this with like some of the older cornerbacks. Dude, Kamori House, man, he just makes plays. Every single time on the field, he makes plays. And if you realize, this is something I wanted to bring up, on this podcast was, have the listeners like seen this? Zoe is playing this edge position a lot more.
I've been noticing that.
Yeah, because they realize, obviously with Durfee out, it makes sense. But I think they realize you can't take Kamori House off the field. You're not going to take Zoe off the field. You're not taking Bruner off the field. So we've actually moved Zoe to this, outside linebacker edge position. I mean, I don't have the numbers on percentages, but it just goes to show you that a true freshman can come in, make those plays, and the coaches just have that. Hey, man, you make those plays, we can't take you off the field. I mean, it's exciting for the future.
Big facts, big facts. All right, Izzo, hit me with some of your players.
Thaddeus Dixon. I mean, we've called out the main ones, but you got to call out Thad. He's getting the toughest assignments now. It seems like the defense trusts him. You talk about doing your job, Noah. It seems like there's no more trust in a single player than Thad doing his job on plays, even going beyond his job, to be honest with you. In this game, he had 3 PBUs. And this is one thing that we should just call out. Like, and I know you guys talked about this in the podcast while I was gone, but those receivers a lot of them are NFL receivers. And
On USC.
yeah, on USC.
Yep.
He's league bound.
Yep.
He has to be. He's played way too well this year in a defense that calls him to play man almost entirely. He's playing in the slot. He's playing outside, in the box. Yeah, enough said.
We came in. If you guys remember, we came into this game. I think we were, some rankings we were like number 3 on pass defense. I think some people have us at 6. I mean, so we're right in that top 5 window, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, Miller Moss was 30 of 50 with 3 picks against. To your point, Izzo, it's a phenomenal point. I mean, Zachariah Branch, Makai Lemon, Jacoby Lane, Kyron Hudson, Kyle Ford, Deuce Robinson. I mean, dude, these guys got
even Marks himself.
Literally every one of those players that you just
have a chance to. Yep.
I would expect will probably play in the NFL.
Yep. And so it's like, dude, these guys showed up and showed out, man. And I mean, we talked about it a little bit on the preview. It's like, I knew Woody March is going to get his. I mean, especially with kind of our depleted, defensive line. You gets a little late in the game. I mean, we held him to 22 yards in the first half, but he ended up with 101 in the second half. And it's like, that's kind of what we thought. But we said, if we could just try to contain him, let's let Miller Moss beat us. And I think we quickly showed. Dude, our secondary showed up against, I mean, from a talent perspective, one of the most talented wide receiver rooms in the country, man. And I mean, and
besides that one busted play on 4th down, like they were pretty nails against those guys. I mean,
dude, 100%.
I mean, Prysock had a lot. Like I said, besides the busted play, Prysock looked really good the whole game. He was locking down. Who's the Deuce
Robinson.
Deuce Robinson. He was locking him down. I mean, 6'4" versus 6'6", and he, like I said, held his own. And they had to throw the ball 50 times, which we had said last week is going to probably result if we can make that happen. Even though
100%.
Mark still did get his 123 yards or whatever it was against us.
Yeah, like Prysock in this game, he got burned on that Makai Lemon touchdown or whatever, right? But to your point, 50 pass attempts. He was on the field. How many snaps? Prysock was on the field all 81 defensive snaps.
He's a gamer.
Absolutely. I think he had the 3rd highest grade in coverage if you're looking at PFF, 80 in tackling, which is number 2 on the team. It's PFF. But I mean, the eye test checks out because what stands out in your mind's eye is the one blunder.
Yeah. So, do you want to know what's crazy too about how well our defensive secondary played? Dude, we didn't have 1 sack in this game.
That's crazy.
And they still. My point is, it's not like we were getting a ton of pressure. Dude, we were dropping in zone. We were playing man. We were running multifaceted looks. We were showing different things pre-snap, and our guys are just disciplined enough, man. You got to give fat kudos to Coach Rich and Belichick. Man. They got these boys ready to go, and it's showing out on the field. So it's cool to see.
So for me, the guys that stood out, Deuce Davis, and I know, Noah, you've been calling for him for the last few weeks. He makes a difference on a lot of those plays. And then I'm gonna have to go with it. I see you had it written down, Noah, but Lance Holtzclaw.
Showtime.
Like that was Showtime had a big play at the end. And I mean, it couldn't have happened at a bigger moment. And what's nice about this edge room is you never know who's gonna make the play, but they all have the talent to do it. I'm very excited moving forward with these young guys because the speed rush is real. And that NASCAR package is going to be tough to stop as we start moving forward through the rest of this year and into next.
Yeah.
All right.
One thing I wanted to say that just while we're still on the defense is that Lincoln Riley, man, like and I know Noah and I talked about this briefly before the podcast as well, which is that like they were gashing us on the outside of the edge, right? So this is really kind of a kudos to the linebackers because they get called upon to pick up the slack there as well as the nickel. And he should have been running Woody Marks like basically 20 times a drive.
I said the same thing.
I don't understand. I mean, I guess he fell behind too quick, but it's just like he's trying to stat pad or something. Like obviously the path you shouldn't be going if you want long sustained drives is to try to pass on this team when Miller Moss has already thrown 2 interceptions in the first half, in the first 3 quarters or what have you. But
and I was saying that during the game. I was like, they did exactly what Indiana did to us in the second half of that game against Indiana, where they changed everything up and started running power. You started seeing the two polling linemen, whether it was the tackle or the guard or the center and the guard, and they were gashing us. And then they went away from it. It almost feels like USC and Washington are very similar in a lot of those facets, where we tend to get away from the thing that we know is going to work for us because our offensive coaches fancy themselves in the pass game. You know what I'm saying? Being play callers, being, smarter than the other guy in the chess game, when sometimes there's brilliance and simplicity.
Yeah. Hey, amen.
Couldn't
have said it better myself. I agree.
No, I'm just over here smiling, Mike, because I think that is like such a valid point, bro. And I think it's so money because, dude, there is this like sexiness of this like coyness of like I'm smarter than you, like my big time.
It's ego. It's pure ego.
Dude, it is, bro. Because
recruiting too. Recruiting too.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's facts too. That's actually very valid. Like they want to show off for these guys. So you're not wrong.
Because I mean that point is great too. Is it because run the damn ball? Remember the Jimmy Lake hat?
Yeah, it doesn't get you,
bro. How much, dude? For whatever reason, which I mean, I love that idea, but I mean, dude, that was recruited negatively against us all up and down the West Coast, and I mean the whole country, really. And it's like there's something about it, man, that these coaches think that if they can just have a big time passing offense, I mean that's what I don't know about that if that's wins them games, but it seems like it keeps them around and get a heavy paycheck. So I think Mike, your point's valid, man, for sure.
All right. Anything else you guys want to get into? We're gonna call this a pod.
I'm gonna slip in there. Dyson McCutcheon's tackle on Marks late in the first quarter was huge, but nothing more than that. I just wanted to make sure that didn't go unmentioned.
Hey, you got extra. You got extra time from missing last week, so you got to say, Izzo, get it out.
Something in there. No, I had that in my notes. I just wanted to make sure because that was a freaking pristine tackle, and it's so encouraging to see guys in the two deep step up and make a tackle like that. And I know he plays a lot, but it's just I love that. I love his game.
McCutcheon.
Yes,
I want to see. Like I said, I want to see him tackle a little bit more efficiently. But I'll tell you what, he's starting to really get his feet under him as the nickel position. Yeah. And I think Jordan Shaw is a good person to be playing behind because I think he sets a really good bar for that position. He's a lot better than what I thought was coming. I didn't know he was that good. So, all right, before we get out of here, make sure you go snap that QR code beneath us, join the Discord. It's free to join. But if you pay that little bit of money, you can get into that VIP and get all that good information before anybody else. It's 2,700 strong, the biggest and best Husky community online. All right, make sure you guys tune in tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to be previewing Penn State. But for Izzo, for Noah, I'm Mike Flaunt, and this is the Dubbed Up Podcast. Go Dogs, baby.
Go Dogs. Hey, last thing I got, Jen Cohen, 0-2. Big shout out to Pat Chun putting the USC band up in the 300 level, far corner. Absolute dub. Absolute dub, baby. Put him in the corner.
Like, that's staying in. That's awesome.
Go Dogs,
Good
baby.
shit.
Go Dogs.